This is Tanya Lynn with the Sistership Circle podcast. From spirituality, sexuality, and sisterhood to business, relationships, contribution, and creativity, the Sistership Circle podcast introduces a new model of feminine leadership where women get real and vulnerable about it all. Tune in for authentic advice that will empower you to be bold, beautiful, and brilliant as your true self. Hi, it's Tanya Lynn with the Sistership Circle podcast, and I am so excited to have with me today Kelly McNelis, who is the founder of Women for One, a destination for women ready and willing to make life happen. With over 20 years of experience as a nonprofit and small business consultant, Kelly empowers generations of women around the world to build the relationships, community, and confidence they need to achieve their wildest dreams. She travels the world as a speaker, teacher, and facilitator of workshops, helping others tap into lives powered by truth. Kelly's dedication to truth-telling helps women and men share their powerful stories with the world. She recently finished writing her first book, yay, Your Messy Brilliance, 7 Tools for the Perfectly Imperfect Women, due out in the fall of 2017 through Enrollment Press. And she finds daily inspiration in spending time with her husband and children in her home outside of Seattle. So without further ado, welcome, Kelly. I am so excited to have you here to talk all about truth-telling and truth-seeking. And this is my favorite topic. So that's why I wanted to speak with you today, as well as let everyone know about your amazing book. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Tanya. I'm excited to talk to you today, too.
Yeah. As I said, when I found you, I think it might have been through Instagram, and saw that your whole thing was truth-telling and truth-seeking. I said, oh, fellow truth person, I've got to reach out. And so I want to start there with what truth-telling and truth-seeking means to you and why it's important.
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't been asked that in a long time because I've been so focused on the book now. And really, my book is about that, about truth-telling. So truth-telling to me and truth-seeking is, first of all, let's start with truth-telling. For me, truth-telling is really about getting congruent with the experiences and stories inside yourself and how you act outside. So it's more like the authentic nature of showing up in the world is what truth-telling is for me. Truth-seeking is that curiosity that I speak about in the book, and it's my first tool that I just intuitively had since I was born. And I think everyone has it on some level where they're curious about, why am I here? Why did that happen? I think I'm a little more curious than most, but I find that truth-seeking has moved me forward in life and helped me to gain an awareness of my circumstances, to take self-responsibility and make conscious choices to move forward in life.
Yeah, I can relate with that as a truth seeker myself. And I specifically remember being in Hawaii at a really young age and reading a book that it was the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And I was introduced to the way, and I was like, whoa! I mean, it was just like light bulbs and just it just opened me up to this whole new dimension, I think. So do you have a story of when you remember really like having that moment of like, wow, yeah, I'm a truth seeker? And maybe you didn't know it was the word back then, but
right. I have 4 stories. This is my messiness in my book that just came into my head at once. So we'll start just briefly with I think when I was like 3 years old, I remember laying, and it's the earliest memory I have, laying under this incredibly beautiful oak tree. And the leaves, those windmills were falling down around me. And I was breathing in this fall air. I always love fall. Fall's my favorite season. And I just felt this peace and joy. And that, to me, kind of started me on my journey to just remember that peace and to have that as a touchstone to moving forward and seeking truth. And then I would say, when my father passed, and my father was actually my abuser. He sexually abused me when I was 4. And it's messy, right? I still loved him, and I actually repressed that memory till I was about 30. But he died when I was 17, and I was on a plane, and he was a little sick, but he wasn't deathly ill. I had an experience of him leaving, and I turned to my mom on the plane, and my heart sped up, and I just felt this freedom and this joy. And I remember looking at my mom and saying, I think dad just died. Like, just very like, it wasn't rational thought. And I think after that moment, I started really questioning life and why I was here and seeking truth for myself. And I would say that would be the moment and the gem, the gift that I got from my father passing, to open that belief system up in me that there is something more and that we can move forward in life with that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, that we really connect with what that first story was. And your whole thing is you create a platform for people's stories. And so how did you create Women for One? Like, I know that you have a story, and I'd love to hear that. And I'm sure that also leads to how you created Women for One. So what was that?
Oh, well, there's so many stories, right? Because we're shaped by our stories and experiences. And I actually just put a story out to my list today. I don't know if you received it, which felt like kind of the beginning of the end, where I'm on the bathroom floor after I had 3 little children, ages 3 to 9, completely desperately unhappy in a marriage, trying to live the perfect life, right? The idealized image of what I didn't have when I was a child. And finding myself waking up and leaving this man and fracturing the family, having guilt and shame, and really having that experience be rock bottom, where I started taking steps to moving forward in my life. And what happened to me when I hit that rock bottom, Tanya, is I heard, this isn't the life you have to live. I heard this small voice. This isn't the life you have to live. And I hung on to that. And I started getting curious, like I talked about, and taking steps towards asking the questions like, what life do I want? And how do I want to create the life that I can be a model for my children and live life passionately with joy, and freedom, because I felt trapped in a marriage. I was unhappy with my husband. And even though I just loved my 3 children beyond belief, I knew there was something more for me. And I would say, that is what started me on my journey towards Women for One. And then what happened was I went, and one of my best friends was dying of cancer as I was a single mom for 5 years. I sat with her when she died. I was with her, and she really taught me so many things about living in the moment, embracing life, being who you are, showing up as who you are. And so after that, I met I call him my current husband. It's kind of funny. I met my current husband. We've been together 10 years, and we blended a family of 6 children, ages 6 years apart, 17 to 23. And a couple years in, like I didn't have anything else to do. They were young. I really felt like I was ready to figure out a new space and want to figure out like what I wanted to do next. So I worked with a coach and meditated every day and checked in with my gut. And I heard the words Women for One. So I got the URL. And after I got the URL, I went, well, I've been in nonprofit, so I'll just start highlighting stories about women, great things women are doing, because all I wanted to do was write. And so let's do that for a while. So I did that for 6 months, and then I sat down and just followed my gut. It was my soul project. And then I said, okay, what next? And I heard women should share their stories from all over the world. And the minute I created that, Women for One became this entity that I was serving. I wasn't creating it anymore. I was the servant to Women for One. And I had stories coming in from all these countries and women, and I had to create a process. And then I moved forward with doing powerful interviews, asking people that have really made their lives happen on their terms, unapologetically, like, how did you do that? And what is authenticity? And I got to talk to all these incredible people. And then 2 years later, I was like, well, what about my voice? I'm having women find their voice. So then that's why I decided to write the book and create courses and start speaking about what I believed truth telling, truth seeking, and authenticity is. So that's the story of Women for One.
Beautiful. And I can really resonate with that, as when I started in 2010, it was Tribal Truth, and it was a platform for women's voices. And I created different events, and I would have all these people come and speak on stage. And I always kind of was the person in the back, right? Like, I was the MC. I was helping women to get on the stage. And there was a point when I had to transition as well into, okay, well, what's my voice, and how can I lead from the front?
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience any resistance towards that when you started to put out your voice on the platform?
Personal resistance, like inside myself?
Yeah.
Or no, actually.
Oh, we're just ready.
I was so ready. I was ready as I was interviewing all these powerful women. In fact, they just kind of modeled to me and encouraged me. I got these incredible mentors like Sheila Kelly and Mama Gina and Miriam Williamson and Dr. Northup. Like, they were all like, Kelly, you should be doing this. Like, go for it, you know? And that's, I think, what's so important, Tanya, is we as women need to encourage one another, and your sistership circle, right? That's what it is. It's like, we're a sisterhood, and we need to, as either the older generation or just the generation, you know, in front of the next one, really support and encourage women and our sisters to speak their voices, to claim them, and to move forward in their lives so that we can uplift the world.
Yeah. Well, I had resistance, so I'm glad to hear
I didn't.
For it. And that's amazing. I think people need to hear that, right? Like, there's sometimes when you have the resistance, and sometimes you just know you're ready and it's just time to get out there, right?
Okay, the resistance, if you call resistance fear, I was afraid. There was a place in me that was afraid, and probably why I started Women for One, right? First, and had other people highlighting voices, is I'd like tap my toe in the water and I'd write a little blog, right? And so yes, for a couple of, I was thinking, like, right in the moment where I was like ready to go. At the beginning, it is terrifying. That's why at Women for One, I encourage women to start with becoming a voyeur, like reading the stories on my site, right? You don't have to come and share your story. You can do it actually anonymously as well, because I feel like even reading the stories that are on there can help you feel less alone and more connected. But as I moved forward, I was just ready to put my voice out there and started really with no shame anymore. But it is terrifying, like you said. For me, it was a little terrifying to have all these people. I mean, I would get negative comments on things I would write. I'd put myself out there, and I really had to develop some strong boundaries around the judgments that I would get about my belief systems.
Okay, let's talk about that, because that is the biggest fear. We just had one of our calls yesterday was on visibility, and I asked all the women, what's your biggest fear around being visible? And that was number one. I am so afraid of what people are going to think about me. I live in a town where, you know, I feel like the black sheep, and you know, and to receive criticism. So can you share even a story of what happened, and what someone might have said to you, and how did you create boundaries, and how did you deal with that situation?
Well, you know, not to deflect from me, my story is not popping up, but a story on my site is popping up with someone else, and it was big. So I had a woman share a story very courageously about being the other woman on my site, and she put her name on it. And I was really impressed, and it was beautifully written. And she started getting attacked by all the women on my site in my community.
Wow.
And I really had a fierce mama bear reaction to her being attacked, because I was like, you know what, there are many other women out there It takes two when you're the other woman in a relationship. And this woman had the courage to talk about what happened. She took self-responsibility and she talked about the lessons she learned. And that's what we do for one. I'm not asking people to wallow in their stories. I want to hear how they came out the other side so other people can be inspired and move forward in their lives. And so I immediately shut that situation down right away because she started getting hate and just nasty messages. And I just wrote about we all get messy. We all are imperfect. And if we can't own that messiness, right? And that's what you're saying about the women being afraid. Women, I just did a workshop in Atlanta last weekend and spoke to women in these small groups about embracing their messy brilliance. And every single one of them, the first thing I said is, I want you to have permission to be yourself. Take your bra off, let your hair down, let's dance, let's take our shoes off, because we're always caretaking everybody else. Like, let's get messy and let's stop trying to look so good and be perfect, because that's who women resonate with. That's when you feel the real true connection. And that's what my message is. And that's what my message was for this woman. And I reached out to her and she was upset, but she left the story online and really courageously marched through it. So yeah, that is a great fear, Tanya. I agree. It's a big fear.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story.
Mm-hmm.
Super powerful. And I think that's something that, we all have made mistakes. We all have that shadow. We all have that messiness. And it takes so much courage to step out and to talk about it and to not be ashamed of it anymore and to help to heal that. There's so much power in that. And so good for her sharing that and the story and the lessons of her story, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And we have shame even when it's done to us, right? Like with sexual abuse. It's like, why are we being ashamed when someone did something to us and we were intimidated by power, but yet we still have shame about that as well. So shame is pervasive. Brene Brown talks about it. It's a real insidious evil in our world that I'd love for all of us as women to get over and move forward through.
Yeah. And you're doing that. You're creating the
We're trying.
Amazing. Yeah. I have one more question that I want to dive into the book. That I think, when someone hears that you talked with Sheila S. Factor and you've spoken with Marianne Williamson, and probably people are thinking, wow, like, how did you, Kelly, get a hold of these women? Like, how did you get in front of them? And I think this is something where we feel like, we put these amazing women on a pedestal and we think that they're untouchable. And so I'm just curious, and I'm sure people are curious as to how did that happen? Like, how did you make that happen? Because I know you probably made it happen.
Well, that's a really good question. And I actually just asked. And, there's a great story about this. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's another tool in my book. It's called Embodying Limitless Possibility. And it's not envisioning limitless possibility. And it's not The Secret where you have to just manifest it, right? This is embodying it. And so when one of my best friends was on her deathbed, Jules, who I still is like my guide and my angel, she tapped into a potential that I didn't even know about myself that I had for me. And I remember sitting there and I was a single mom. I was stressed. I was going through my divorce. My best friend's dying, right? I was a mess. Speaking of, I didn't mean to use that word, but I was a mess. And she looked at me and went, oh, honey, you're going to be around. She was just a straight shooter. She's like, you're going to be around forever. Someday you're going to be sitting on Marianne Williamson's couch. This is before Women for One or anything. She tapped into my future. And I don't usually go and sit on people's couches. Like I usually do a Skype, right? And 5 years after that, I'm sitting on Marianne Williamson's couch, and we sat down, and I was pretty terrified. It was like my third interview I had done with anybody that was really well known. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea, like, why am I in LA? Why did she invite me here? I just reached out and she said yes, right? It was like, and was pretty out of my body. And I sat down with her and I decided, well, let's use my tools of grounding, breathing, and naming what it is. And I looked at her before we started and I told her the story of Jules. And she started crying and I started crying and we hugged each other and she asked to say a prayer for Jules and her children. And it was just this complete connection between woman to woman. It wasn't Marianne and Kelly, right? It was just, I got real and I didn't try to be something I wasn't. I was crying and I was like, I can't keep myself together because I can't believe I'm sitting on Marianne Williamson's couch and my friend passed and told me this 5 years ago. So circling back to what you're saying, I think there was a really small percentage of me that believed my friend and just hung on to that. And then not faked it to make it, but like I just decided this is what I wanted to do. And I didn't care if I got turned down. So I just reached out. And people, you know, there are a lot of incredibly supportive people. I want to say women, but I really want to say men too, because I've had some great mentors as men. Women out there that intuitively trust their gut. If you reach out and they feel like it's from a pure intention, they honor and support it. That's my story on that. I really believe you gotta believe it and you gotta go for it.
And I had a feeling, and that's why I asked, is that you literally just asked and you embodied it. And I think it's such a great lesson for women is that you just have to put it out there.
Yeah.
And you're never gonna know if you're just sitting there not taking action. Like you just took the action. And then let go of it
too. I get turned down all the time. But I'm like, but then there's this certain amount of surrender that it's like, okay, that wasn't meant to be. And I really do trust in that divine plan and go, okay, maybe someday. Like, you know, I've asked Brene Brown 4 or 5 times and it's never the right time. But the last time I asked, she said, her people said, you know what? Brene's in the middle of this, but how about check in with us next year? It's the first time I got that after 4 times, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to talk to Brene. I think she's an incredible leader and powerful, and I'm going to keep asking. So I'm not going to take rejection personally or failure, you know?
Thank you for that. Yes. And there's such an alignment with your message, right? So it's really tuning into, who do you resonate with? And that's part of the embodiment piece.
Right.
You're not just starstruck by this person. It's like there's a connection there. You're believing, you feel that resonance. And I think that's why it happened. That was supposed to happen. Like there was that alignment with the message. So powerful. Okay, so let's dive into your book. So why don't you show it again?
Okay. Your Messy Brilliance.
Yeah.
Launching in New York City, Barnes & Noble, November 2nd. And I couldn't be happier. And Dr. Northrup's on the front, which feels really good to me. I can't believe Dr. Northrup's on the front of my book because my mom grew up idolizing her and I grew up idolizing her. And it's an incredible book. If you mind, I could just tell you the story of the title. It's fascinating.
Yeah, please.
So the title of my book for the past, it took me 4 years to write it. It didn't take me 4 years. It took me a year to write it. It took me another year to rewrite it. And then my title has always been The Messy Truth. That was my title. And I got the URL of The Messy Truth and I actually still own it. But then Van Jones came along at CNN and took The Messy Truth to a different level with his show. And his people approached me and asked me for the URL. And I was like, well, okay, but I own it and I'm going to be my book that, right? So talk about surrender. And then I thought, well, Van Jones is a lot more well-known than Kelly McNelis, right? And really sat with my team and talked about it. I was like, well, The Messy Truth sounds a little negative. It's not very feminine anyways, you know? So the brilliance part that came is really about, you know, people think this word messy sometimes is negative, but brilliance makes it this genius place of beauty in each of us that's messy. So then I changed it to Your Messy Brilliance and it just feels perfect. So that's
Yeah,
fine.
wonderful. Do you have a passage you want to read?
Oh gosh, I didn't really do that, but
Maybe even just turn to a page and see what
yeah,
one.
really, let's do that. Yeah, so basically the book is about 7 tools to move forward into your imperfections and make your life happen. The conclusion, it's my favorite. I just read my audiobook a couple weeks ago, and it was so cathartic to read my audiobook, for an audiobook, and to be the one that did it. I started with a quote from one of my favorite authors, Paulo Coelho, and let me see where we can go here. I love the end. So if I could read that, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, although each of us is connected in eternity, a human life is like a shooting star against a night sky, bright and brief. Embody yours to the fullest. Love, laugh, cry, feel, and express your passion with the ferocious courage of a lioness and the natural grace of a woman. Come back to your brilliant and magical self over and over, and allow yourself to unearth new wisdom from your explorations. Clear cut the places that overflow with lies, distractions, and anything else that distances you from joy, power, and truth. Always choose to reframe your story, especially the story of who you think you are. Ask brave questions that will lead to epic discoveries, which will allow you to embrace the greater masterpiece of your life. Unabashedly own your power in all its generous genius and magical messiness. Create your infinite roadmap from the treasures, debris, and raw material of your life. Celebrate all of your wins, your own as well as those of your tribe. Share your journey, your story, and even this book with a beloved sister. Most of all, remember that you don't need to embark on a voyage to a distant land to find your brilliance. Your brilliance is right where it has always been, here in the marvelous ecosystem of you, patiently waiting for you to reclaim it. Big love, Kelly.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, this is so exciting that it's coming out. Do you want to share with us what the 7 tools are? You've mentioned a few throughout our time here.
Thank you for asking. The first tool is curiosity, which I talked a little bit about, and I believe that it's a powerful tool, curiosity, because we can use it in a small situation in our lives when we're having an issue with a friend or in a relationship, to the larger issue of like, why are we here? Why am I here on this planet, right? And then I move into awareness, and that's really about, it's very similar to what I do with Women for One, getting an awareness of our stories and experiences and how they have shaped us in our lives. So I think that's really powerful to do, and it's not a linear 7 tools. We can go back and forth, get curious about the stories so we can gain an awareness of them. The next tool is intuition, and I think it's a really, really important tool to be able to understand and hone into that radio signal, get really still and quiet within ourselves so we know what we want and what we're supposed to be doing with that quiet but powerful voice inside ourselves. The next tool is surrender. And intuition, actually, let's go back to intuition, is really about power, right? But then we've got surrender. I think as women, we hear the word surrender and we think we're giving up, but surrendering to me is moving into a space of getting congruent with what's going on in our lives and surrendering to it. Kind of when you have a failure, understanding that you're going to learn from it and move forward. The 5th tool is my favorite, and it's choice. And the reason it's my favorite is because I really believe we as women are at a time in our lives where, in our generation, where we're taking the feminine and we're the masculine and we're integrating them together to move forward. And I feel like the surrender tool is the bridge between the emotional processing and the masculine action orient, right? So choice is the differentiator in my life. It's taking self-responsibility for my own actions, moving out of my victim circumstances, and knowing that I have the power to make a choice in any situation. So that's a big one for me because I was really raised in a victim mentality. So it's big for me. And then the sixth we already spoke about is the embodying limitless possibility, which after we make a choice, we have to, believe it, not just envision it, which is part of it, which The Secret got right, but then embodying it, like knowing that we are meant to do this here. We are meant to be on this planet. We are powerful beings. And then the seven is your roadmap. The seventh tool is your roadmap. And your roadmap is really pulling all the other six tools together to create a plan that is your roadmap to the life you've always dreamed of and to the joy and passion that it is your birthright to claim. So those are my seven tools.
Wonderful. I love it. And I think that one that you were saying, the choice is so important, and how many women are stuck in that victim mentality and don't get that they have a choice in every moment. So thank you for bringing that piece up.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes when people hear the choice piece, they think, well, I didn't have a choice that I was raped. No, you didn't. You didn't have a choice that you were raped or that someone died that you loved, but you have a choice on what you're going to learn from it, and you have a choice on how you're going to move forward to honor what happened. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. Thank you. Beautiful distinction.
Mm-hmm.
It's always how we're going to react. Are we going to react, or are we going to reflect? Are we going to learn?
Right.
Yeah. So beautiful. Before we wrap up, so people is there a page for the book that people can go to?
You can go to womenforone.com, and it's all spelled out, womenforone.com, FORONE. But we also have yourmessybrilliance.com as well. So people can go and pre-order my book on Amazon. I'm going to be in 4 cities touring and signing books. Barnes & Noble, Union Square, November 2nd in the evening, which I'm so excited about. Talk about embodying limitless possibility. I had no idea I'd ever do that. And then I'm in Boulder for a panel discussion about getting messy with some of my favorite people in Boulder. And then I'm doing a book signing there on November 16th. Mm-hmm. And then I'm in Seattle celebrating, actually before that, I'm in Seattle with my family and friends and some media that's coming to a winery to just have a fun party for my book. And then I'm in Tempe, November 30th at Changing Hands Bookstore. So I'm really excited. They can find all that on my Facebook as well. We have a large community.
Yeah. Well, great. So in closing, is there anything that if you can shout from the megaphone for the women of the world today, what would you say to them?
It's so funny. You know how you get that gut reaction and you hear it and you're like, should I really say this? Like, that's what I just heard. I just heard, it's okay that you're not perfect. Like, don't stop trying to get it right. That's what I heard. And embrace that messy brilliance, because you're going to find your genius in there and be able to move forward in life in ways you've never dreamed possible, as long as you just relax into that messiness.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It was so wonderful to have you here, and I love your message, and your book is amazing. So everyone, I highly recommend that you get a copy, and we will see you during our next show. Tune in next time for the next podcast.